It was one of the great weekends of Gaelic football, and as much and all as you come away thinking about Tipperary's victory over Cork and that first win in 85 years, and Cavan's brilliant display against Donegal, where not only did they shock Donegal, but they actually outplayed them for most of the game, and they looked like the team best equipped coming from Ulster to sort of kick on to that next level. So those two games were fantastic, but Dublin's beating of Mayo by 321 to 9 points was some of the grimmest stuff I've ever been at in terms of GAA. Like it was the equivalent of, I don't know, watching. I mean, it's hard to know what the equivalent of it is in a sporting sense when you talk about GAA, but it was like watching a senior inter-county team against a bunch of minors in a weaker county. And that's not to be disrespectful to Meath, because all those players, you know, they're putting it in, but it's just a different level altogether, and it erodes almost the pride of a county. And Meath obviously has an awful lot of that, and they have a history of winning All Irelands and within the last 20 years. So it was really sad and grim to watch it. And you know, that kind of led former Westmeath player John Conlon to tweet about it, because he's so dismayed at the situation. And you know, there's been a huge take up from what he said online, because an awful lot of people, you know, were kind of dejected by it. And 666 retweets as I look at it here, which is a bit kind of religious figure or satanic type of figure, 248 quote tweets and 3,200 likes. And there's an awful lot of ill feeling within that in the terms of the conversations being had there. A lot of people are arguing yes, a lot of people are arguing no, a lot of people feeling very defensive, as if it's an anti-Dublin thing, because it's not anti-Dublin or the players per se, where I would be agreeing with some of what he says in terms of like the funding. And just to bring it up on screen, he's talking about the differences between, you know, Dublin and what they can rake in versus what other counties are doing. He's talking about having to pay for a pair of shorts, and he's just basically talking on the GAA to make immediate action, because to somewhat bridge the gap, because like it has got to the stage now where you wonder where this is going to go. And you know, he said that Meath or Westmeath in their last number of finals, they've lost by an average of over 10 points. And if you look at the last few finals, I'll probably just bring them up here on screen. It's been grim, and I have been at an awful lot of them, and you kind of almost wonder what is the point of this. It feels like a bit of a sham at this stage. But look, if you look at the last number of finals, 2019, 117 to 4 points. The year before, Dublin 125, Laois 10, Dublin 223, 117, Kildare. That was a decent performance from Kildare, to be fair, although they feel like they've fallen away a bit. Dublin 219, Westmeath 10, Dublin 213, Westmeath 6. Even before that, you know, heavy enough victories over Meath a couple of times. And it's tough to watch. It very much is. And it is something the GAA need to address, because the funding has to go into other counties and the expertise. Because, you know, I play club hurling in Dublin, and I see the numbers that some of the Dublin clubs have, and you know, Coola, my own club, that would have, I think, between men and women, probably the guts of 90 clubs or 90 teams at different age groups. And you see, I think Ballyboden has 170, and Kilmacud Crokes has a nice few. There's not an awful lot of clubs that have a huge amount of teams between male and female at all the different levels. And as like, if you can pump money into that, I mean, obviously having the infrastructure around you and all the colleges and the expertise and all the guys that might go to college from all over the country, they're then looking for work experience. There's so many clubs that are making use of that expertise and people looking to get work up here. Now, maybe COVID will change kind of things, and people's talents will remain and harnessed more locally. But if you have a huge population and you've got good organisation in a club, it's no surprise that so many Dublin clubs are so powerful. There's an awful lot of football clubs in Dublin that I think would operate somewhat comfortably in Division 2 or not, if not Division 3 of the Football League, and that in itself is very worrying. That, you know, the population bases of certain parts of Dublin outstrip many of the counties in Ireland. So if you've got a concentration of really good infrastructure, a big population, and you've got a culture, a good positive culture within a club, like there are some clubs in Dublin that probably massively underachieve, but they don't have the right culture. But much like the county team itself, specifically in football now, because obviously football or hurling hasn't got to that level just yet, and certainly not making use of all the very best players because they go over to football. But if you look after, you know, dot your I's and cross your T's, you can really make massive grounds in the space of 10 or 15 years. And I think an awful lot of rural counties can as well if they get that boost up, because there's so much expertise in Dublin, like that's how it feels, and some of the county boards across the country are ran like a joke shop. That's how it feels. Like there's huge waste, and for county teams to punch above their weights, like let's say for example Monaghan, it's got a very, very small population and didn't go their way this year, but they're constantly punching up towards Division 1 in the Football League. They've been to All-Ireland semi-finals, they've won Ulster titles. There are other counties that are maximising themselves all over the country, and you need as many as possible doing that. And if they're ran like a bit of a joke shop, and we've seen even situations in the last year or two where county players are coming out and making statements about the state of their county board, or maybe the manager hasn't been appointed the right way or not treated well. And that this is rarely something you'd see with the likes of Dublin. They're very professionally ran. They have a commercial director, much like Wexford have and other counties, and they're all moving in that direction. And then you see, like, there are counties that have appointed like heads of a head of athletic development in the last couple of years. Cork even did it there in the last year or so, and there are clubs in Dublin that have that. So there must be a huge amount of counties that actually aren't run as professionally as clubs. So if you've good like it's obviously not the fault of clubs in Dublin or the players who play for Dublin that they are ran well and they're benefiting from all of these things. But the GAA definitely needs to find ways to bring up other counties to meet them. When I hear people talking about splitting up Dublin into north or south or even into 4 or whatever it might be, I don't like that idea, because it's just saying we're going to erase your identity here. We're just going to, you're no longer Dublin anymore, you're South Dublin and you're North Dublin. And I don't think that that's right. But the big problem is, you know, the GAA has created a runaway train that's humiliating the rest of Leinster, and I can understand why players would walk away, because what is the point? Like, there is zero hope of any team beating Dublin in Leinster in the next number of years. I had hoped beyond hope that Meath had bridged the gap after watching them in Parnell Park recently, losing by 4 points to the Dubs, but the Dubs were obviously just in first gear, and it's not like Meath were unlucky the other day at Croke Park. Like they started all right, they got a couple of scores on the board. What was it? Like after 8 minutes they were 2 points apiece. So it's not like they came out and just froze. It's just Dublin decided to up the intensity, and there's so many unbelievable players that are at such an unbelievable level, and they've got a great culture of 30 or 40 or maybe over the course of the last 10 years 50, 100 lads who've all been pushing each other to the next level to try and get onto that panel to be part of the history they're trying to create, whereas in other counties they're hemorrhaging players every year. So it's a multitude of factors. Yes, money helps, obviously, I mean, massive part of it, but there's so many other little factors as well, and then of course you have great players. So I'm not anti-dub, and I don't see it that way at all. Like, as I said, I'm part of Coola, and I see like there's been a great culture there, and that, you know, lads pushing each other and whatever, that led to the success in recent times, and who knows how long that'll last, but you know, that's been a big part of it. And I put up a poll on the back of Dublin's heavy win, and you know, we have that whole 1920 All-Ireland parallel where Cavan, Tipperary, Mayo and Dublin have all gotten through to the All-Ireland semi-finals again, as they did back then. And I put up a tweet basically saying, wouldn't it be brilliant to have the All-Irelands not played at Croke Park? Do people agree? So back when those games were played 100 years ago, Dublin played Cavan in Navan. Now Mayo did play Tipperary in Croke Park, which was a neutral venue. It didn't happen until a year and a half later because of all the strife going on at the time, and ultimately Tipperary went on to win that All-Ireland. But just to bring it down a little bit further, I decided to throw up a poll: should one or both of the semi-finals be taken out of Croke Park for 2020? Now there's almost 4,000 votes with just 2 hours of it left. I did a day-long poll, and for 61% of that to say yes, I think that's quite a telling factor. And it's interesting with an awful lot of these polls that I throw up online, whatever the percentage is after 10 minutes, it was more or less, it's 62-38 after about 10 minutes. That remains consistent throughout. And I think 4,000 people, give or take, is a fairly significant sample size and should give a taste of the mood. And this should not be construed as anti-Dublin. I mean, I think playing in Dublin, I wouldn't, you know, I'd be more or less for Dublin players and clubs, certainly in most ways. And being from a country area of Tipperary, I obviously look at things from a Tipperary point of view. But I think that why not take the All-Ireland semi-finals out of Croke Park? Croke Park is geared towards the very best teams. And I think no matter where Dublin play, they're going to be comfortable and they're probably going to win the games anyway, and they're probably going to complete the 6 in a row. They'd be massive favourites to beat Cavan. It wouldn't matter if they played them on the moon, they'd be favourites to beat them there. But why not take it out of Dublin? This year we know there's possibly not going to be any supporters there. It remains to be seen if there's any talk of bringing in a certain amount of crowds, because it will be, after level 5 of the lockdown will probably be ended. I mean, depends on what time you watch this video, maybe more news if that will come true by then. But let's assume a tiny crowd, 80,000 aren't going to be allowed in, we know that. So let's say there's no crowd concerns, there's no, pretty much any venue in the country could hold this. Why does it necessarily need to be at Croke Park? Players yes, they dream of playing at Croke Park, don't get me wrong, and it's an unbelievable thing to play there. But you grow up dreaming of winning an All-Ireland, and if somehow this is a leveller for 1 year only, I mean, why not try it out? Why not go to Navan? Why not go figure out what pitches are in the best condition in Ireland that can hold the amount of backroom teams, the amount of players required, and make sure you get in even those players that aren't part of the 26. There's no reason that they can't be in the ground as well. It is an insult to those players to be told, sorry, I know you put in all the training all year, but you can't come to the match. That's pretty, it's short-sighted is what it is. But you look over the years at the All-Ireland semi-finals that have been taken out of Croke Park for one reason or another. 1983, I think people still talk about that Cork-Dublin replay down at Páirc Uí Chaoimh. Galway played Clare 2 years ago in an All-Ireland semi-final replay at Semple Stadium. Kilkenny and Waterford did it in 2016. And what was wrong with that? I mean, as I said, Croke Park is unbelievable. And for teams that haven't played there before, like Cavan haven't played there in a few years at this point, in Championship, when you go in there the first time, there is an adjustment level to it. It does feel very, very different to other places, and you could feel like you're at midfield in a club ground or a smaller ground, and it feels like it's a small puck or kick of the ball and you can knock it over the bar. In Croke Park, it feels like a massive chasm. It's different with the stands up around you, and it can be overawing for certain players, and Dublin are so used to it. It feels massive, and Dublin can make maximum use of that, as can Mayo. Mayo would be massive favourites against Tipperary. So why not, we played a couple of All-Ireland finals there at Club in 2017 and 2018, and the replay of 2018 went to O'Moore Park, and I'll always have fond memories of O'Moore Park in Portlaoise because of that, and in no way was the experience diminished by it. And actually playing Club All-Ireland semi-finals in the likes of Thurles and Armagh, they're just as memorable. I think because there's no problem with crowd, there's a lot of pitches that can host this. I don't see a problem. It's not an anti-dub thing either. The Dubs have explained on several occasions in the last couple of years with the Leinster Championship, they're happy to play wherever they're put. No problem at all. So why not here as well? I'd love to get people's thoughts on it, and people to not just decide this is anti-dub and look for a reason to smash me over that. I mean, this is the 1 year where we know we don't have to worry about 80,000 people fitting in and nowhere else can host it. So why not take it on tour? I think it would be a good thing. Yeah, people might be thinking, oh sure, why would you bring the Dubs out to a different part of the country and then Cavan to a different part of the country and COVID and all that kind of stuff. But we've seen many games safely played in different parts of the country. We saw Munster finals going on or we saw neutral venues for the hurling over the weekend in the quarterfinals. So why not neutral venues here? I'd love to get your thoughts. So let me know what you think.